With the end of the season coming around, you might as well take time to look back, see what's kind of happened during the season of the Witch, and what my thoughts are about the whole thing. Now, I want to start off with the storyline of the season, which, by the way, will have some spoilers being involved, so if you haven't gone through the story, do go through it now before you come back to this video. So just wanted to kind of give you that disclaimer here. Now, first off, one thing that I did want to focus first on is going to be the way that Immaru and Savathun are within the story. First things first, Immaru is amazing. I'm glad that we got so many interactions with Immaru, with talking to all the Vanguard members, because the amount of snide remarks, the attitude that he provides, and just everything about his tone always just indicated that, hey, he is here just to be an ally of convenience. There's nothing else that's really preventing him from just hightailing it out there, other than the fact that Savathun essentially is just not in the picture at this moment. And I love it. I think it's freaking great. And honestly, I can't, ask for any more from Immaru, because it works with the way that not only he acts, because again, he is Savathun's ghost, but also kind of aligns with how Savathun is, where anytime that we hear her talk, she seems very snide, she seems very sarcastic in some points, and has that attitude. And so the alignment between the two is just really nice to kind of see that little parallel come in play. And not only that, when he's talking to all the different Vanguard members, you also get little witty remarks and a little bit of comebacks coming from each of them, whether it is Eris Morn, Ikora, or even the Drifter, when he's just there to kind of just stir the pot a little bit. And I love it, and I think it's amazing when it comes down to it. Now, speaking of the other members of the Vanguard, I think the next focus will have to be Eris Morn, because, well, she kind of also goes through this whole situation of changing who she is and showing what the impacts of her actions are. Because initially we see how it is, she's like a cautious, wary researcher that's into the hive situation. Then when she becomes like a hive god, or a hive god simulant, so to speak, you see how she becomes more aggressive, tide hungry, wanting that power. Because at that point, she's laying the drive to essentially stop all the sisters from going in and taking over and stopping the Travelers' work. Because one, that's what happened with her, where she essentially lost her entire fire team when they were going through Crota's end. Now, that will be something I'll be talking about later on. But I think still the fact that she does give this kind of different dynamic when it comes to the different forms does show the impact that hive magic has on her, especially when we haven't experienced it as much as she has. And the fact that even though she is someone who's researching for endless amount of time, it still has that drastic of a change compared to what we were coming to expect. Now, when it comes actually to the storyline itself, there are some caveats to this whole situation. One obviously being, hey, it's a weekly cycle, meaning that we can't watch or see every single aspect of it all at once. We still have to go through the ritual cycle. But again, they've been doing this since Shadowkeep, so I'm essentially numb to this whole type of situation, just because it's hey, it's there, so it's whatever on my end. But the main issue that I have is when we go and actually summon Savathun, resurrect her from the dead, we get maybe one or two sentences from her and then she dies. Now, I might be biased. I love hearing how Savathun interacts with everyone, just seeing her snarkiness and all that. But I honestly felt like there was actually going to be some type of discussion between the two. Hey, here's what we're thinking, and then she gives some type of witty banter or something, and then she dies. Not just, we resurrected her, we killed her, and that's that. I'm sorry, as much as it's yeah, that was necessary because she had the power connected to it, and we did get a really interesting boss fight beforehand, And it still isn't, just like the whole thing doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't sit well because it doesn't feel like we really got what we were kind of hoping for. But again, one thing that it did kind of like cement is that obviously, things have to move at a certain rate. And in this case, overall, I will say it's still a good story. I'm not going to deny the fact that it's still something engaging, something interesting, and something unique, especially when it comes down to the story beats that we had. But when it comes down to it, the real main things that are kind of pushing this is just the interactions that Immaru has, as well as the way that Eris Morn acts when she's in her hive state as well as in her normal situation, so we can kind of see how that dynamic plays out. And also with the backdrop of everything going on, like the radio messaging and also the different interactions that we have with Immaru and the recordings that Savathun has made for us, we also kind of see what Savathun has been doing in the background compared to, what we have known just straight up beforehand, which does kind of help a little bit of the expanding the universe of Destiny a little bit well. Now, moving away from the actual story itself, let's focus on the seasonal activities, Savathun's Spire, and Altars of Summoning. So first off, we're going to focus on Savathun's Spire. Essentially what it is, it's your normal activity setup where it is 3 different encounters. In this case, it's 3 different levels with 2 random mechanic encounters and then a final boss encounter of the activity. Now, it does have the form of repetitiveness that you come to expect, but the nice part is that the mechanics as well as the bosses can change between the levels. One time you might be doing it one mechanic, another time you may be doing a different one, and not only that, but you also get to tweak your playstyle by utilizing the arcane cards that you've collected over your time playing through the Spire, the altars, as well as through the regular activities. Now, when it comes to that, you're able to actually adjust what cards you can use by going into the Antenaeum and actually changing the deck on the position of which cards you would want, if you want all of them or if you want 5. Now, of course, that being said, it does kind of provide some form of randomness, meaning that you're not able to select the specific card you want or the specific order of cards that you would want to have. You must have 5 and they're always going to be randomly drawn for you. However, you do have the ability to redraw them if they're not the card that you would want. Now, we can kind of go over the different aspects of the encounters, but again, like I said before, each one has like 3 different forms, and it's all based off of what the game wants you to go through, whether it's like a solar, void aspect, arc aspect, or something that has to do with the bits of hive, but it normally just still goes based around those 3 elements. Now, that being said, throughout the actual Spire itself, there are unique puzzles and hidden areas that you're able to go into to collect additional gear, get a little bit more reputation, and be able to understand and see what kind of secrets Savathun has been hiding within the actual tower itself. Now, on top of that, there are cards that you are able to pick up, and those you can pick up at any time you would like, as long as you have the correct attunement and know the location of where they are. Now, the cool thing is that when it comes down to this, the boss fights themselves do actually have a lot of variance when it comes down to it. First off, you can either be fighting 3 Lucent Hive bosses, one of each type. You could either be fighting a Scorn Sniper, or you can be fighting a Hive Ogre. Now, each do have their own little mini mechanic within there after you reach a certain point in the damage phase, where it could be staying on a plate while everything shoots at you, while you have to do a little mini game task while everything shoots at you, or you have to essentially clear out some bells while everything shoots at you. So there are some varieties, but don't be surprised if you get shot at. Now, with that being the case, there is a legend mode when it comes to this, and like always with other legend modes from before, you do get additional loot and a higher chance for red frames as well as ping pong balls, because let's face it, getting them through the battle pass for the ping pong balls does take a little bit longer than you would want. Another cool aspect that is shared between both altars of summoning as well as the Savathûn Spire is the use of Savathûn's keys. So you will get up to 5 keys, and you can use them on the final chest to gain additional loot as well as higher amounts of reputation, which does allow you to be able to kind of consistently have just 1 key in storage and be able to use it to gain extra loot, which does give you a little bit more of benefits when it comes to the loot grind. Now, obviously moving away from Savathûn Spire, we do want to talk about altars of summoning, and honestly, it's a nice breath of fresh air when it comes down to it in terms of an activity. It's an open area that allows you to use offerings to provide tithes to Eris Morn and get gear in return. You can offer 3 different types of offering: feeble, robust, and powerful, each offering being seen as a different level. Feeble obviously being the easiest, like level 1, and powerful being the strongest at level 3. Now, the stronger the offering, the harder the minigame is, obviously, but once you complete it, the more progress you get for getting the tithes to Eris. Now, you can also, once you finish it up, there will be a chest that you can also use the keys there as well. So instead of just having 1 single key for the Spire and 1 single key, like a different key for the altar, they're both the same key, which is a massive improvement from what they did in last season, where they had 1 key for each and making it such a pain in the ass to deal with it, because again, you would just need to force yourself to run those to even get the other one. Now, with that being said, that area has 3 different altars or arenas that you would be able to go to. Now, over time, it does move from one location to another after you do a couple of offerings at one altar. It'll be able to move to one of the other 2 that it isn't at, allowing you to see kind of a new form for the arena, quote unquote, changing how the arena would be. Now, the cool thing is about this entire thing is not only there's multiple arenas, but also the cards that you can get are also strewn about with the same aspects of Savathûn Spire. But the best part about it, the best part, is you do not have to leave. It's just an entire instance that you would be able to have, people could join you, and people can leave at any time that they would want. Now, that being said, there is a slight cooldown, which does kind of make sense to give people some time to grab the items, but honestly, I don't think it's really that necessary, especially if there's not an automatic timer that just starts it up. You actually need to stand on the central area to even start the offering process. So I do find it a bit redundant when it comes down to it, but that being said, it does provide some different use and some different ideas of like, oh, this is what we can do here. Even though it's just essentially a modified version of the Blind Well from Forsaken, and also it's kind of the works the same way, with the only exception being that there is no additional level that you would be able to get bonus loot from. But the one thing is that we can take away from this is that they at least adjusted the way the loot grinding feels like. Instead of just going into the actual instance, you're staying within the same instance and people can come in and leave whenever they want at any time. There isn't anything preventing that from going through. Now, obviously, other than just the 2 seasonal activities, they also had reprised Crota's End in this season as the reprised raid. Now, if you haven't played it in the original Destiny game, just to give you kind of a quick rundown, it is just a 4 encounter raid, just kind of like the Route of Nightmares, where it's 2 mechanic encounters followed by 2 boss encounters. Really, there isn't a huge change. It still kind of uses the same basis and the same understanding of the mechanics. However, the real main change from the original version to the current version is the fact of Chalice of Light. When you pick up the Chalice, you will be able to kind of start the charging process. Now, once you charge it up, which can be accelerated by getting kills, you will be able to be hit with a debuff of Engulfed with Light that has a 10-second timer for you to get rid of the Chalice, or you will die. Now, once you get rid of the chalice, when you're engulfed, you will become enlightened, where you can't pick up the chalice until you get rid of the enlightened buff and the debuff that comes after, called drained with light. Now, the chalice is a nice little addition to the raid because it is a very straightforward mechanic. It's nothing too difficult or too complex, but it does add in a little bit more of a unique playstyle compared to the original mode, where instead of you being able to kind of like single-handedly go through the entire raid, you can actually work with your teammates and kind of increase that engagement for every player within there. And I think the really cool part about it is that, one, it's not a difficult mechanic, but because of the fact that it's something that it charges over time and not something that you just get the buff and you gotta get rid of it, it does kind of help you keep on your guard a little bit more, better than just like a simple mechanic. Although the charging aspect of it does kind of irk me, just because I'm more of somebody who enjoys a countdown type timer rather than just a bar filling up. But again, that is just on me, so your mileage may vary. Now, I could kind of go over all the encounters, but I do want to kind of keep this video short. So what I'm just going to do is just kind of be going over a quick explanation in terms of like what I think of each of the encounters. The first one and the second one, like I said before, are mechanic based encounters, so you can actually kind of see how the mechanics work, and the fact that they were able to bring in the Chalice of Light and kind of include that into those mechanics does kind of show what their, what the raid team brought in when it came to adding this into the existing mechanics and adjusting it so that it fits more closer to what D2 would have it as, where it is in the final aspect, something that, again, creates more of an engagement for the rest of the team. Now, obviously, the second one, same thing, increases engagement and also kind of adds in another little spice of flavor when it comes to it. Now, if we want to look over at the boss encounters, the first one of Urgut is really actually one of those dynamic ones where I was kind of pleasantly surprised, to be honest. The only thing that I really had an issue with Urgut is that sometimes sporadically she will just like shift, or even she will just teleport and then teleport away from where you are to the middle because of like some random dynamics of that, which does kind of get annoying if you're using certain weapons. But as long as you are anticipating that situation, you can kind of keep track of it if you're using rockets or grenade launchers. But if you're using anything that is hit scan, like linears, machine guns, or anything else with that, it is very straightforward, and honestly it's not a huge concern, but it is a slight inconvenience that does kind of prevent you from being able to optimize perfectly with all the weapons. Now, when it comes to Crota itself, Crota came back in a much better form than it was before. It felt like there was actually more of a fight rather than just, oh, you can easily single-handedly do this, because obviously with that enlightenment buff, you do have to actually kind of do the exchange, increasing that engagement and making it so it's more around for other people to do it, unless you kind of go through and exploit through it, because again, there are some exploits that allow you to solo Oryx. But again, it is a lot more difficult to do that, and it is something to kind of keep in mind for. Now, when it comes down to it, it is still pretty good. It's a great fight, even though you're still able to cook him in like less than 30 seconds. Like, no joke. But then again, that's kind of how all bosses are now at this point. We're just that friggin' broken. But besides that, the cool thing about this is that they did bring some really good looking armor pieces. I enjoy the looks of them. The aesthetics of them are really nice. It fits with the theme of Crota's End. And if I remember correctly, I think it's from the Age of Triumphs. But again, don't quote me on that. This is just me kind of going off of a guess, because granted, as once I get the actual armor, I don't actually use it, admittedly enough. But I think the really good part about it is the weapons themselves. Now, the weapons are pretty good, and again, like the previous raids, they are craftable for you to make, so once you get all 5 frames, you essentially can just make your own and have it the way you want it. The cool part is, though, however, has to come with the exotic weapon that comes with it called the Necrochasm. And instead of making it just like a random drop, just like how it was with both the Touch of Malice as well as the Vex Mythic class for the other 2 reprised raids, this one actually comes as a quest line, which is great, and I love it. And if you ever did it through day 1 for the initial completion, you will actually auto-complete that, get the weapon immediately, and they did come out with the Calus, which if you finish challenge mode during the contest period, you would also be able to get that right there and then. So it is a really nice way that they actually kind of introduce the weapon as a quest line, because honestly, it's really good to have it as a quest line. I kind of wish we had Touch of Malice as a quest line, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. But this case, I'm glad that they kind of stuck with their guns and stuck with the quest specific system that they had from Destiny as well. Now, when it comes down to everything overall, Crotazen, really good raid to kind of go through, kind of get yourself acclimated to this. And on top of that, since it is a free to play raid, you don't have to worry about needing to buy the next expansion or buy any expansions here. It's available for all players, and again, it's really good, it's really easy, and as long as you're at the max level, you'll be fine. There's not going to be any other differences when it comes to it. There's no increased level grind, and also it's really kind of engaging with all the mechanics, as well as the challenges for the weekly ones, and the mechanical ones actually do provide an additional degree of difficulty. Now, I want to end off this kind of review of all the different things that have been brought in with the Imbaru engine and what I like to call the puzzle of the Forbidden Wish. Now, if you don't know what the Imbaru engine is, it is something that you are able to do through the storyline, and it is an activity that you are able to access once you get certain opaque cards that are strewn throughout Savathûn's Spire, as well as Altars of Summoning, and contain 4 different puzzles, 3 of which you are able to access by just scanning the cards. The 4th one, you have to do a little bit of a flame search for it. Now, each puzzle is different from another, so any of the puzzles beforehand or in the future don't really contribute into it. They're each unique in their own right, which is actually kind of nice because it does allow them to kind of be a little bit creative. Now, they do unlock once a week. However, afterwards, they're all available for you to go through consistently, as long as you are able to previously take care of the puzzle beforehand. So after you do all the 3 puzzles, you actually will be brought up to the final area, which will allow you to open up a room. However, you need to grab 3 different flames. 1 in the Imbaru engine, 1 in the Spire, and 1 in the Altars of Summoning. Now, once you grab all of those, you are able to unlock the 2 Truths and a Lie, or what I like to call the Forbidden Wish puzzle. Now, once you are able to solve that final puzzle, which if you want to solve it, have fun. It is very interesting to decipher, but if you want to just get the answer quickly, you can always look that up. You'll be able to get the reward that Savathûn left for us, an untouched Ahamkara egg. Now, what's even more is once you bring the egg back to the helm and put it into the Athenaeum, you actually get a little bit of a cutscene that shows that since the death of Savathûn, your character has actually been working on trying to figure out the 15th wish ever since it was rumored back during Forsaken. And because of that death, he notices a pattern within Savathûn's wings, and because of that pattern, he was able to find the final wish, which also leads us to next season, called Season of Wish. Now, this was something I was not expecting at all. I was not expecting, 1, a untouched Ahamkara egg, 2, a very engaging and interesting puzzle segment that did take a little bit of time for people to figure out. And 3, the 15th wish actually being something that's in the game. Now, granted, if you actually put what they have found, it doesn't actually activate anything, but then again, it is likely something that you'll be able to do once the new season comes live. Now, it is great. I'm glad that they actually kind of came into that. They had that file stuck in there. They really didn't do anything with it. People have been theorizing, conspiring, and all this massive thing. And right there, when Savathun dies, is the gift that she finally provides us at the end. Which is actually really cool, and also the fact of the Embargo engine itself was a really nice kind of like gift, quote unquote, from Savathun, because it still showed that even when she's gone, she always will hide things behind puzzles, riddles, and other stuff that can be deceptively easy, but then turn out to be difficult and take some time to really solve. And I think the fact that we were able to finally get the 15th wish is a really good summation of us interacting with Savathun and her puzzles and coming out on top. So, with Thel going over everything, the storyline, the seasonal activities, the raid, as well as the engine itself, I guess it's time for us to really kind of go through everything, kind of grab it all together to give that score. Now, obviously, in a summary of this, it is still a basic seasonal structure, meaning that you still have your weekly grind, you still have time-locked story quest, and again, you're in that monotonous version of, hey, to get story beat, do activity A, followed by activity B to get info C. Of course, that's going to be something that's how it is. However, the fact that they were able to make the adjustment and change it so that instead of having 2 similar activities, you actually have one basic one that you're kind of expecting, and then also a modified version of the other. So instead of just having strike 1 and then strike 2, you actually get something interesting from the other activity, making a little bit more of an interesting time when you're going for that loot grind. Now, when it comes to the raid, obviously, I'm someone who enjoys raids. I think this is a great addition, but overall, when it comes down to it, there's still a lot of work that could have just been added in. Because again, like I said before, even though they did do some changes to it, even though the story was really good and they gave us a really surprising finale, that's a segue to the next season, it's still the basic structure once again. And I think because of that, it doesn't, it's not like a 9 or a 10 out of 10, obviously. But it's definitely an improvement from Season of the Deep because, one, even though the dungeon was really, really good, the activities itself were essentially the same thing, give or take 1 or 2 aspects of it. And the fact that they were able to reduce the number of different keys down to 1 for both activities in here, rather than in Season of the Deep where there's 1 for the deep dives and 1 for the regular, defense. I think that does have the improvement for that. So overall, I would say I would give this season an 8 out of 10. Now again, if you have like different concerns, different opinions, don't be afraid to put that in the description down below, because honestly, this is just my opinion. I'm wondering what yours is. Now, with that being said, I'm giving it this 8 out of 10 because, like I said before, there's still room for improvement. There's always going to be room for improvement when it comes to this because of their whole do not over deliver. It does hurt a lot when you know what they are capable of and what you have seen when they're essentially let off the leash. Now, with that being said, we don't know if we're going to really see any much changes when it, and because of the fact of the Season of the Wish potentially being this 6-month-long, season, it's possible that we might not be seeing it anytime soon, and possibly only seeing really any major drastic changes coming into the episodic situation when it comes to the final shape. But with that being all said, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you do want to see more, do hit the subscribe button, and if you did enjoy the video, hit the like button as well. And with all that being said, until next time, I'll see you at the next review.